You're trapped in a dungeon faced with a never-ending horde of monsters, and the only way out is to get 10 million points in a match 3 game. Let's hope your phone has enough battery left. My name is Graeldon, and I'm reviewing Steam games in alphabetical order to find the hidden gems among the piles of garbage, and today's game is 10 million. Let's begin. Humans have an uncanny knack for not being great at understanding the scale of large numbers, and in the case of today's game, 10 million is no exception. On paper, it doesn't sound so bad, but imagine for a moment that I ask you to count to 10 million, and you'll earn the amount that you manage to count to in dollars. It'll be easy at first,
4, 5, 6,
but become more laborious as the numbers go higher.
790, 84,791,
But we can give a generous estimate of being able to say one number per second. So, at this rate, how long do you think it would take to earn the full $10 million, assuming that you didn't need to eat, sleep, or do anything else that would interrupt your counting? Did you think it might take a few days? A couple of weeks? How about a third of a year? It would take almost 116 days to reach 10 million at that speed. So, when a game tasks you with reaching a score of 10 million to escape a dungeon, you'd better hope that you can earn more than 1 point at a time. Developed by 88 Games and released back in 2013, 10 million is the twisted result of crossing match 3 mechanics with an RPG, but it's far from the first, as one of the earliest examples that I'm aware of is Puzzle Quest: Challenge of the Warlords, which released in 2007. However, while Puzzle Quest leans into the more thoughtful, strategic approach to its gameplay, 10 million decides to do away with the mechanic of only moving 2 tiles at a time, and instead allows you to slide an entire row or column, increasing the possibilities and multiplying the chaos. At the start of the game, you're promptly informed that keyboards are frankly unnecessary and to just use the mouse. This makes sense because 10 million was also designed with touchscreens in mind, being available on both the Google Play and iOS stores. While all versions are roughly the same price, it's worth noting that the Android version might not be viable if you have a newer device, as it seems they haven't updated its compatibility with newer software versions. In terms of settings, I don't think it'll be surprising that it's pretty bare bones, with just sound and music sliders, but it's worth leaving the music on, as while the number of tracks in the game is limited, they are all fantastic. At the start of the game, your character, Larry, wakes up in a dungeon. There's a bed, 2 scoreboards, one of which is titled Freedom, some boarded up rooms, and one large and rather imposing door. The other rooms need to be repaired before they can be used, and the door at the top will only open when the score of 10 million has been reached, so for now, the only thing to do is to head through the main door and into the dungeon. Here, you'll work through a tutorial that will introduce you to the core concept of the game, but it does also leave a few things for you to figure out along the way. Before we get into the first round though, I have to admit that I'm intrigued by the fact that the easiest level of the game starts with a 4 times multiplier. I'd love to know what the heck the justification is for that. Like, was it something necessary for game balance to ensure that it doesn't take too long to finish the game? Or was it as simple as big numbers being more satisfying than small ones? Whatever the case, we start the first round, the screen fills with tiles, and Larry marches into the dungeon at the top of the screen. As is expected of the genre, the moment-to-moment goal is to make matches of 3 or more, which is done by using the mouse to click and drag a row or column of tiles into the desired position. Potential matches will flash to make it obvious when you're in a valid position, and the first match we'll make is a set of swords, which will deal melee damage to an enemy, with a small percentage chance of a critical hit for massive damage. As you're making your moves, Larry will slowly be pushed towards the left of the screen, and reaching the far edge will end the current run. While in combat, enemy attacks don't deal damage to health, but instead push Larry back, so essentially the dungeon acts as a prompt for what obstacle needs to be overcome, as well as a timer to keep track of. Next up, matching staves will trigger a magical attack which has a small percentage chance of causing an additional effect, such as freezing or poisoning the enemy. Matching backpacks has a chance of finding an item which is stored in the grid in the top left and can be used at any time for a powerful effect, such as instantly opening locks, restoring the dungeon timer, dealing massive damage to an enemy, or transforming tiles into other tiles. Next up are the key tiles, which when matched will open a lock. Chests typically have 2 locks, while doors have 1, so having enough key tiles around is pretty useful. However, they won't do anything when you're in combat. Opening the chest gives Larry a skeleton key, which I promptly click on, so it vanishes, as items are used the moment you click on them. The next sign tells me that skeleton keys can open 2 locks at once and that I should use it now, even pointing to the recently vacated inventory slot. Oops. Thankfully, this didn't soft lock me and I was able to proceed by opening the chest the usual way. Next up is shields, which will reduce the damage Larry will take and can actually prevent monster attacks from pushing him backwards. And lastly, the game explains the different resources and currencies. Wood and stone are earned by matching their respective tiles, whereas gold and experience are earned from defeating monsters and opening chests. As you can probably tell, keeping the board clear so that you have access to your offensive and defensive options is pretty important, so clearing wood, stone and backpacks out of the way quickly is critical to success. Thoroughly overwhelmed with info, I managed to get past 2 more enemies, accidentally turn anything potentially useful into keys, get one shot by a T-Rex, and get unceremoniously booted back to the main hub area. Welcome to the loop that is 10 million. Survive for as long as you can, gather resources, and then use the resources to purchase upgrades that allow you to progress a bit further, raise your score a bit higher with every attempt, as you help Larry to inch closer and closer to that elusive 10 million score and freedom. Completing objectives will increase Larry's rank, allowing you to unlock rooms in the main hub and giving you the ability to then spend gold or experience on permanent upgrades. The first room to unlock is the training room, where you can spend experience on perks such as increasing the amount of gold earned from chests, making it so that matching wood or stone restores a small amount of time, or giving Larry a chance to block ranged attacks. Their effects are pretty varied, but very powerful. The remaining rooms will unlock upgrades for Larry's physical weapon, magical weapon, shield, and armor. Additionally, each of these rooms can be upgraded up to 3 times, but sadly these don't unlock new upgrade options, but rather increase the maximum level cap for each category. It's not a bad system, but it doesn't allow for much in the way of customization or creativity, essentially boiling down to bigger number is better. Especially considering that you can grind for more currency to eventually unlock everything. The final room doesn't unlock until late in the game and houses a variety of potions that gradually become available as Larry's rank increases. These have a bit more thought put into them, often giving a bonus at the expense of a significant trade-off. However, these are incredibly useful for reaching the final score. As you progress further into the game, your score multiplier increases, but the dungeons do begin to get trickier, both through tougher enemies and also increasingly difficult combinations. Sometimes Larry will be facing 3 or 4 monsters in a row with no respite, and sometimes he'll be dealing with a chest while being pelted by ranged attacks, and sometimes he just gets damn unlucky. There were a few runs where I failed on the first or second obstacle and then went straight back in and managed to get several minutes deep despite not changing anything. Lady Luck can indeed be fickle, and here you are entirely at her mercy. But failure doesn't punish the player, and each attempt will reward you with incremental progress, so often the best thing to do is to simply brush yourself off, get your head back in the game, and try again. After all, it's only a matter of time until you reach the required score and Larry achieves sweet, sweet freedom. And then maybe you'll do another run. Just because you can. $10 million took me just over 5 hours to finish, and at a cost of $5.49 Canadian, I feel like I got pretty decent value for money. Simply put, it's a well-made product with a game loop that leans 10 million% into the just one more go mindset, constantly dangling rewards in the form of upgrades just out of reach. And it's just as well that it managed this, because without any form of story or plot to push the player forwards, the upgrade system and gameplay need to be compelling enough in their own right. However, I wouldn't recommend that you play through the game in the same way that I did, which was basically in one sitting. It's a game that is well suited to short bursts in order to avoid it feeling too repetitive. In that sense, I think it's perfectly suited as a mobile game, so it's a shame that the Android version no longer works. Realistically, there's little to complain about here. The UI could be improved somewhat, and I'd appreciate a broader range of music tracks in order to increase the variety, but otherwise, this was a solid experience from start to finish. Perhaps there is more that could have been done in terms of mechanics for added variety, especially when you look at the way a game like Puzzle Quest uses interactions with the game board, but too much complexity doesn't gel well with the fast-paced nature of 10 million, so in that sense, I think they got the balance right. They even accounted for longevity and replayability by including some pretty challenging achievements, requiring you to demonstrate mastery of the game by achieving the 10 million score on a lower level with a lower multiplier. It's not a game that I'll be going back to anytime soon, but it's certainly one that I'll look back upon fondly. And that's why my final rating for 10 million is Freedom out of 10. Like stepping outside of a musty dungeon for the first time and breathing fresh air, this game was a glorious moment of respite on my never-ending journey. Thanks for watching. Welcome to the end of the video. Today's Larry was sponsored by the Crabs. You could also become a sponsor by checking out the membership options below. As always, a massive thank you to all the channel members on screen for supporting the channel, with a special thank you to our Knight of the Holy Grail, Freaky Feline. Lastly, I want to thank you for joining me on this weird gaming adventure through the depths of Steam. And if you've made it this far, here's a sneak peek of the next game. Until next time, take care.